Welcome back, everybody, to what I cannot believe is the best tips of 2025 webinars, the key takeaways from another year, which I'm like, Ashley,
Another year, which
is this year three?
yeah, I believe it is our third year of the Lady
Yeah.
Leader series. Holy cow, we do a lot. I love it.
Yeah, I'm like, wow. So, yeah, what we figured we would do with this one is sometimes it's helpful for people who would be listening to this to figure out which ones they may want to go back to as webinars. Because I joke with people, you don't really need it until you need it. You don't actually need some of the information, so it's not pertinent to listen at the time. But our hope is if we give you a couple of the little tips from these webinars, if need be, you can go back and go more in depth if it's something you're struggling with currently. So we'll kind of just head right into it, which thank you for your little synopsis. That was super helpful too, by
Yeah,
the way.
of
Um,
course.
January, which of course is coming up right around the corner, but we did discuss, did you set goals for a reason? And, I will say for everybody looking to set goals for 2026, that is an evergreen webinar. I went back and kind of double checked it. A lot of really good things just to think through. Even my own self, as I was looking through, I went, oh man, there's some things I need to think through. And a lot of it was really starting with why are you setting those goals in the first place? And we dug into more of the purpose behind the goal itself and what is the feeling you're looking to have on the other side. I just got done talking to another woman doctor recently. I just got off the phone and it was so cute because she was like, it is funny. I do a lot of goals in hopes that I'm going to feel happy. I'm going to feel a certain way. And so she said, I think I was setting myself up for consistent, failures, mismatched expectations, I think, with it. And so um, I think that's something that is really a key takeaway from that one is why are you even, setting them up in the first place?
Yeah.
It's the deeper why behind them. And in that webinar, I do kind of this so that exercise where it's really big for me to figure out, you know, I want to produce $1 million or whatever it may be. So that what? And I keep saying so that over and over and over to get to the bigger, what's the feeling you're looking to attract underneath it? So, what else I think for you, Ashley, kind of stood out?
Okay, you kind of stole mine, but it's the why. I mean that was the biggest thing that stood out to me. But then also there was a point in there where you talked about communicating to the team that it's like effectiveness and progress over perfection.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really important, like even as you're setting those goals, to be communicating, like when if they don't get met, it's kind of about reevaluating for the morale and success of the team. Because if you're just constantly not meeting your goal, like that's a deal killer. You even mentioned with the consult you just had, that it can be really demoralizing. So it's important to be communicating like the wins and the, over the progress, even if it's not exactly hitting those every single time. So I think and that's consistent, right? It's not just once. It's not just, um, at the beginning of the year that you mention it and, set it and forget it. That's not how goals work.
Totally.
So I think that's another one too. It's the consistent revisiting of those goals and the why, and then celebrating the progress towards them as well.
Well, and progress, like you said, doesn't have to come in the sense of did we hit every metric perfectly? Because I think a lot of times the metrics, and it's funny, I'm going to be talking about this in January, I think at the mastermind, where metrics are really a vehicle or resource. Um, they're not the goal in and of themselves. They're just the vehicle for helping us understand where we are in the journey with things. And I think your point of ensuring that we're reassessing, is this working? And am I actually becoming more of a human I would want to become? And how is my team actually even becoming as well? I think that's super important also. Um, because I think sometimes we don't recognize in the process of pursuing goals, sometimes it's tearing our teams even apart, or it's creating frustration, or it's creating animosity or lack of trust, or whatever it may be. So if you're looking for setting goals for January, I think that could be a good one for people to go back to. Anything else before we move on to February?
Um, No, I think we hit on there. I mean, yeah, I had written here too, lack of structure breeds anxiety and low engagement. So making sure that your goals are structured was a good takeaway from that as well.
Clarity and structure cover a multitude of sin, don't they?
Yes, absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
okay, February, we talked about Am I the Problem? Leadership communication with positive impact. And I lovingly joke, pretty much always the answer is yes.
Yes,
Like
yes,
the
you are.
problem stemmed usually when I was having a leadership breakdown, it stemmed from me. And usually, I think this is the webinar that I started talking about the 5 C's. And the number 1 C is clarity. Usually I found that when breakdown was occurring, it was because I wasn't clear from the very get go of the standard I wanted, why I wanted it, and exactly what I wanted it to look like.
Mhm.
And so I think we will often dive in head first with a lot of times our team trying to get them wrapped in to certain standards or up leveling standards when really we never had clarity in the first place. So this webinar walks through if you're finding there's a breakdown in your communication, you're repeating yourself a lot, you're, you know, saying the same things over and over. If there's that breakdown, frustration, seeing fires, maybe listen to this webinar and go back and kind of reevaluate, are you hitting all the steps? Because truly we walk through these C's to figure out, um, you know, is there something I missed along the way?
Yep. Yep. I love that. I love one of your other C's too is the commitment, which was such a big one too. Like you can't have people be like, yeah, no, I'm totally in on this. Like you have to hone and put energy into developing your leadership skills to get your team to commit to your vision. And if they're not committing to the vision, you need to figure out the why. Like, is it you? Is it them? We've talked about that too. Sometimes team members are just not in the right place. They're not in the right office and not the right fit, and that's okay.
Oh,
You have the best way of firing people, like in that you're like so nice about like, is this really what you want? Like, like, are you sure you want to be here?
that's
Um,
funny.
and anyway, so it's about kind of developing that commitment, and I just wanted to touch on that one too.
If you would like to know nicer ways of firing.
Yes. I think that we've touched on that quite a bit, but maybe we need a whole just firing webinar.
Yeah, yeah, great. Because it will come back to actually this, which, truly, if you're just looking for, you're consistently frustrated with breakdowns of communication, this is a great webinar to go back because I can tell everybody along the way I missed a lot of these, whether it was clarity, whether it was getting the commitment, like you said, whether it was figuring out the consistency piece. What is going to stand in the way of you keeping this consistent? And actually walking through all of that before we ever deployed the standard. Um, and then what are going to be the future consequences? What's going to be coming down the pike if we don't do this? I never discussed all of those things ahead of time. And so, because of that, it made it to where I never knew, could I fire somebody? Have I done everything I could? Did I miss something? For me, this framework just gives me the confidence to recognize when I've done what I can do. And really, it just may be that there's a mismatched person for the position. And that's where, I think for me, letting somebody truly move on can feel like such a gift for them just as much. And I think that's part of where you were saying, it really is, hey, you've been having to suffer these consequences now. You're on your third time. You sure? This is
Yeah,
feeling good for you.
yeah. You
Because I
can't
do,
be enjoying this.
yeah, nobody likes to not be good at their job. But I think if you've set this all up ahead of time, the crazy thing is they come in to the conversation, which I think we even walked through what this looks like. They come into that conversation recognizing I'm just not a great fit for this, whether it be capability wise, whether it be culture wise, because the same conversation can happen with the soft things like core values and things like that too. So if you're having concerns with breakdown, go back to February's webinar, and I think just see what maybe there might be in store there for you to kind of help you as a resource wise. Like I said, that framework has helped me a ton. So then in March, we discussed, after you and I have talked to so many dental offices, I was thinking about this. This is my coming up on my 7th year of coaching with DSI. You've been talking to doctors for, I don't know, 15 or something crazy
Yeah.
now. Um, what are the keys that we keep finding are making the most successful practices. And I really enjoyed this one because I went back and really put thought into what are those keys. So if you're looking at maybe setting goals and kind of leaning on the stories that us and other coaches have of what other successful offices are doing, might be a good combo of doing January and March webinars together. Um, because I think, we did discuss a lot about what it looks like to invest in the people in the office. And I think, one of my comments is we often will spend more time creating the most beautiful inventory spreadsheet and hours with numbers and systems. And because of potentially, whether it's we're introverts, we don't feel comfortable having conversations, we'll spend less time really nurturing, growing, empowering the people around us because that feels harder often, a lot of times, versus the numbers, the spreadsheets, all of that. And I joke, if we'd spend as much time there, I think we could see dramatic changes in our practices. That's part of what the tools we have in Lady Leaders webinars are actually here to do, is to give you guys maybe some more tips and resources for how to have these conversations and empower your people. So I think that's one of the first keys of successful practices is they know how to invest, they know how much to invest, and they know when not to invest anymore in certain things.
Mm. I have to add on that you said those conversations feel harder. And I think it's because those conversations are harder. Like, let's be real, the spreadsheet is very cut and dry, black and white. As a dentist, you get into, very practical science things. It's easy to manipulate,
Oh,
managing 15 different personalities and having different types of conversations. That is an absolute skill and it is harder. So yeah, I have to, not to brag on us, but that we do focus quite a bit on like, here's how to have these conversations and here's how to, what to consider and here's what to study for yourself. Because back to February, am I the problem? Yes, yes, you are. So when you develop your communication skills,
yeah.
then you can come across more clearly. In back to February a little bit too, we talked about coming from a place of curiosity versus judgment. And that's a skill and that, that's a shift that you have to make in learning to have those conversations so that you can you learning that skill is also you investing in your team because you know how to handle people better.
Oh, amen. Well, and it's that skill set that it's hard to want to invest in because
Yes.
you don't see the ROI
Yeah.
as quickly or what you think you're going to see. I get dentist brain. I am one. I get it, but I have found, and that's another key to success is the best leaders of the best practices, they spend just as much time on mindset work, mindset communication. Because I always say, like, and I didn't come up with this, I think it was probably like the Bible, but out of the mouth only speaks what's in your heart naturally.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you're having that healthy mind, when you're having that neutral kind of demeanor, you can let go of ego. It really does allow you to just say things that are going to end up being considerably more neutral in nature, and it's going to be more effective as a communicator. And leaders, I just find the best leaders spend the most time working on those kind of things, whether it be books, practice, feedback from the people that they trust in their practice as to how they're doing. That's what they end up working on. So there's a lot of great kind of tidbits of what the keys to successful practices are. Anything else though that you want to add to the March? um,
Um, I think that was, yeah, that was probably one of the biggest things. I think we'll leave March at that because
yeah,
that's what we should focus on.
it, it's pretty transformative. I
Yeah.
think those last couple points, and I think you and I both can say how much we see it in offices.
Yeah, and we have seen it too when we have failed. Like you and I both have done it wrong. I think of when Mark allowed me to hire my first personal assistant, and it did not go great.
Yeah, yeah.
So learn from us and where we
Yeah,
failed.
yeah. And that's why I say I'm like doing this for so long. I'm like, I've made every mistake possible when it comes to leadership communication. So,
Yeah.
and then in April, we talked about the top systems to upgrade now. If you're looking to combat the final, financial climate. And I think everybody is noticing, and especially now too, more holes in the schedule, people saying not saying yes to treatment quite as easily. So I think people are really feeling it. And if you're noticing that right now, go back to that webinar. Because what I say is like a lot of times people go immediately to marketing. They're going to go to immediately to ratcheting that budget up, and then they're stressed out about that. And I say it can be and you could potentially ratchet up marketing or change to emergency marketing, which I love all of that, and double check that there's no holes in the boat here. I hate to see people doing that kind of stuff when they really aren't 100% sure that they've actually tried to reactivate 18 months past. And what kind of calls of action have they used with those patients? Have they actually combed through their treatment trackers?
Mhm.
Have they, really been good about saving cancellations on the phone and looking at what the verbiage is? So we dove into some of the little nitty gritty tactical things that I think can make a big difference, because I hate for people to keep spending more money to fill those holes because they're panicking, when a lot of things are just kind of going out the bottom of the boat. I don't know, whatever that whole thing is, that analogy, but you know what I'm saying. But the water's just sitting through anyway. So I think being careful with really small tactical things can be huge. And I tell people whether that's just right now or in the future, if things turn around and everybody's scheduling, it's still going to serve you very well, these tactics.
I love it.
Anything else for April for you that you can think of?
Nope, those were great ones. Just kind of the nitty-gritty of the low-hanging fruit within the office. I mean, we always preach to go there before spending more on marketing. And you can't, if you're having more people call in, but your team doesn't know how to handle a cancellation when that new person closes or gets on the schedule or tries to cancel, it's an absolute waste of your money. So just to reiterate.
Absolutely. And that's what I think a lot of times doctors that feels once again easier than spending time on the tactical stuff, doing what it takes to really check confirmations and reactivations and,
Yep.
you know, all the things that we talk about in that webinar. So if you're suffering some of those same things here now at the end of the year, go back to that webinar. And then we went into May, which was my team culture is complacent. How do I re-engage them? So I will say again, we definitely talk a lot about the soft skills because I find if somebody wants all the nitty gritty tactical stuff, that's actually sometimes easier to find and actually create. Mark gives so many great tips on the podcast. There's so many good resources in DSN. Uh, these are some of the harder things for sure. So, and forgive my blue note that I think I just heard in the background. I'm sorry, everyone.
All good.
I joke, it is a dental office. I'm sorry. Um, but what I will say is to some degree, I warn doctors who are hard charging, complacency is somewhat normal for people. And they will sometimes push for a while. And especially, by the way, end of the year, I see it a lot. Teams are weirdly sometimes in the winter, towards the end of the year, they can actually sometimes feel more complacent unless you're pushing for a very specific goal for end of year, bonus wise, prize wise, things like that. And I tell people that's actually a pretty normal thing. But what I say is, you'll see some of those early indicators. And I think it's important to recognize, is this something that we need to address right now? Is there some sense of normalcy around this? Or is it maybe symptoms of bigger things, meaning an overall bigger complacency within the team that we need to level up? So we talked a lot about the energy that the doctor themselves is bringing and how that shows up in the office. Leaders, if they're the ones kind of infusing their team with energy, what's that energy look like? Because, like I said, everybody, and we talked about it in May, but I see it often at the end of the year, people can start to just become more complacent this time of year. It feels like everything kind of is winding down, and sometimes people want a little bit of peace or rest where they don't want to push quite so hard. So when does it matter to push, and when is it time to just allow that kind of sense of rest for a bit we talked about?
Totally, totally. I think too, going back, and it keeps going back to the am I the problem, right? Like your team is gonna mirror your energy, too. So if you're getting complacent, if you're letting it slip, like it's just gonna it rolls down here hill there. So that was, just we sound like we repeat ourselves a lot on these, but it's because it's so true and it's so foundational. Um And then the other thing too, back to, when it does come, when your team is becoming complacent, you hit the nail on the head too with approaching it with, out of why and approaching it with curiosity, not out of correction and like judgment and like fixes. It's why is this happening? Tell me more. Like, how come we've let this slip? What's going on? Again, coming from a place of curiosity versus judgment will go a long way.
Yeah. And is it the standard of care? Meaning,
Mm,
this is a standard we can't let slip. And if
right.
things are starting to slip, you're exactly like we said, it starts with me first. As the doctor, as the leaders, is it something we become complacent on? And if so, admit it. I always say my best tactic is to say, hey guys, I take full responsibility.
Totally.
I have noticed that I've allowed this to
Yeah.
slip. Or as the years progress, this is something that is really important, but I've just recognized I haven't always upheld this. That's okay. Moving forward, this is how we're all going to up level it, and I need your help. If it's a standard of care, I think that's someplace we can't be complacent on. If it's metrics or goals that maybe aren't quite as important, determine, is it something you want to push on now? Or is it something that you could push on later? Or do you need to push on it at all? And that goes back to the goals, the metrics, and why are we chasing them in the first place? So I think that was just a nice one for people to kind of mid-year reevaluate where they're at with things. We skipped June because we had an incredible summit. And just for everybody, the Mark just announced kind of the next summit and the next keynote speaker, which is super exciting. So I'm like, I won't say anything, but on
No, you
workplace.
totally can. I was actually going to say, so that'll be June 13th in Frisco, Texas, and we have Gino Wickman speaking, so I'm
Yes.
excited.
Yes. So yes, just for everybody who might be interested, that's what we did in June. There's obviously stuff you can always look back up from DSN from the previous summits, but we hope to see you there this June. We'll probably take off this 2026 June as well.
Most likely. It's a busy month.
It's a busy, busy month, especially for you, but for all of us. So, um, and then in July, we once again kind of hit economic slowdown. Once again, I finding when I'm talking to offices, they're still experiencing a lot of what we discussed, whether it was, back in whatever March, April, and in July. And so this time, what we talked about in July was more supercharging treatment acceptance through smarter hygiene exams. And I actually just got off the phone right before this with a DSI client who this is exactly what we talked about. Calibration with our hygienist, the verbiage we're going to use, taking the time to really walk through. And I said, like, I used to practice what the verbiage was going to be, the analogies we're going to use, the handoffs, exactly what we're going to say in those. What diagnostics do I want exactly done prior to me ever coming in? And, a lot of times this goes back to the leaky bucket or boat or whatever, but we'll dump a bunch of exams in. But I tell people we don't treat each one of them like they're gold. Sometimes we end up rushing through them. So when our schedules don't look full, we never even realize that we missed a lot of opportunity. And so we kind of dive into what does it look like to supercharge these hygiene exams. And that was a really fun one if you're looking to get a little more tactical. So anything else from you there?
Yeah, no, I have to shout out your incredible hygienist Kylie who joined us and also Dr. Monica Erda. I loved in that one that we had Kylie's point of view because she's talking from the side of the hygienist, So if docs you're struggling kind of with that commitment from your hygiene team, it was really, really interesting and helpful to hear from her point of view what it's like to have your doc come to you and want to implement these things and what they're looking for and and how to get their buy-in. So that was a really great one that I encourage you to go back and watch.
Well, in thinking that you're hygienist, we don't want to push them to do too much.
Mm.
It's hard because I know right now doctors are feeling that sense of wanting to balance how much is too much to ask of them and things like that. And what I will say is, I've never met a person who wants to do a good job who doesn't want clarity. Like, not many hygienists want to walk into appointments having no idea what a doctor expects. So I think being able to get clear with some of the things we talk through in that webinar might be helpful for where do we just need to level up our hygiene exams to create better schedules for all of us. So yes, I think that's a great one. I will tell you. Let's see. We skipped August. I think we
Yeah.
took a back to school moment.
I
Um,
was traveling, you were traveling, and we
yeah,
were like, this just doesn't make sense.
yeah, yeah. Well, and it really, I think I have, oh, my daughter was going back to
Yeah.
college. I think it was just, yeah, it was all the things. Um, I always joke, see, we do have real schedules too. It's funny how we make it work sometimes. But so in September we talked about raises, the when, the how, and the why. And one of the big things that I find doctors tend to want to do is say nothing until they have to.
Mhm.
And I tell people that makes it feel so much bigger when it's happening. And so people will end up just being like, I don't know, I just gave $1 an hour more. Or they came to me and I didn't really know, so I just did this. And it goes along with a lot of what we were saying from proactiveness, practicing a lot of the verbiage and communication. But I think when teams understand how to earn raises and what's expected of them, it creates such incredible clarity and
Mhm.
motivation at different levels depending on the person, but it creates more clarity for you too, so that when they walk in you feel actually kind of stoked that they think they deserve a raise versus I don't know what to do, I'll give you $1 an hour. Or the other thing I hear is doctors will say, they came in and wanted this much, that seems like a lot. Well, we don't always know because we haven't to some degree spent the time to kind of work on some of this. So if you're sitting there right now and one of your goals is to create a better sense of growth trajectory for your team, you're looking for how do they actually earn their raises versus giving raises. And I talk through ideally people give percentages, not just a static dollar amount. um, the tier-based system that I know I've developed a long time ago, a lot of us have started to develop over the years. I think things like that can create such a great sense of clarity, but confidence when you're having these conversations, and even excitement to some degree to celebrate it.
Yes, I love that you touched on that, the celebration of growth and like that's just building that into your culture of like celebrating like when maybe an assistant was working really hard to get there. Um, oh my gosh, I just forgot it. What is it? EFT,
Oh yeah, EFTA, yeah, yeah,
yeah,
extended
their
functional
expanded
assessment.
functions or you know what I mean? Like you get to celebrate that with them and they know why they got that raise and they know what the next goal is and the next benchmark. Like it just makes it so much smoother for everyone.
Yeah. Well, and like I said, the thing too is, and I think I alluded to this in the webinar, like it's not comfortable to think that people are talking behind the
Mm.
scenes. And I'm always like, I don't care.
Yeah,
I'm like, if so and so, if hygienist A wants to talk to hygienist B, I don't care because there's
right,
a system around it. Um,
right.
it's
We
not
know what hygienist B has to do to get to where hygienist A is. And they
exactly.
know too. Yeah.
Yep. And that's where I'm like, it kind of alleviates a lot of that sense of weird tension.
Yeah.
And that's what I want for the team. I want for everyone. I don't want that insecurity around how do we earn this? What do we do? Is it tenure? Is it just because I've been here for a long time? I want people to understand what it looks like. And so we really dive into that topic. And so if that's something you're looking to establish in 2026, it may be a good one to go back to. October, we went back to the hygiene department and it was, is it even possible to have a productive hygiene department in the current climate? And we had the awesome Rachel Wallback. And it's always fun because she is a hygienist herself, but she teaches hygiene departments how to be productive and incredible members of the team. I always am impressed by her point of view as well.
Mhm.
And so we actually started from the beginning of how do you even attract high quality, hygienists who still love patient care. And then we moved to when do you offer flexibility, when do you not. We talk through onboarding them most, how to do that the most successfully. She even walked through from her perspective as a hygiene coach, what are the hygienists that you actually do pour into, and when is it potentially this isn't going to work? What are the non-negotiables? She kind of talks through. It's not saying hers have to be ours, but we really dig into when would it potentially be time to say this is not going to work with a hygienist. And so I think she brought up a lot of great points of it's still definitely possible. The climate just might look a little different as to how we do it.
Yeah. What I love about Rachel is like I feel like owners and docs can be sometimes really intimidated by their hygiene department. And she really helps to kind of demystify it a little bit, and just kind of clarify and help you understand. Again, kind of like Kylie did, like just kind of understand where they're coming from, understand since she's been in it for so long, like you said, where to draw that line. So, gosh, I just love when we have Rachel on.
Me too. And I do. I just think it's good for doctors to hear it from hygienists. And to
Yep.
your point, that's why I like having even my own on,
Yep.
because I think sometimes it can feel like there's this weird fairy tale world that, like, do they even exist? I'm like, they do, but sometimes they have to be created to some degree too,
Right.
because we never know what offices they may have came from. So, and then just last month, it was a really fun one we've never done before, which was making the end of the year magical for our teams and our patients. And it's funny because we obviously do a lot of the things that we were discussing, but even I actually, as I was researching for that and thinking about it, it kind of upped my level of a few things. And it's
Yeah.
fun. One of the tips I had was I do know at the end of the year, I try to leave little gratitude cards for team members throughout the year. But I always know I'm going to truly make sure that I have one ready for them at the end of the year of what specifically I appreciate about them or what I saw for growth. And I joked about the one year where I thought I would like type up the one like thing and just like insert name.
Yeah.
And I said,
You were like,
that's
it's done.
done. Poof. They don't even care. I'm like, they do care. They do care. And
Yeah.
so, it was funny because I actually had to giggle this year because I did spend the time this, to really make sure um, I can specifically appreciate them. And we talked about whether it be holiday parties that you have, whether it be December or I like to have mine in January on purpose,
Mhm.
just to that fresh start feeling and not to include too much in December. But whether it's potlucks or ugly sweaters or Christmas music or Secret Santa or no Secret Santa, you and I
Yeah.
talked about. Because we discussed sometimes those things that feel really wonderful for us, it doesn't always feel wonderful for the rest of the team.
Yeah.
And so we talked through some of that and getting the team on board so that doctors don't have to shoulder all of it on their own. So we talked about it from the team perspective and from the patient, experience when they walk into offices. What can it feel like for them, and what can we do to make them maybe feel special at the end of the year?
Yep, I absolutely. It's funny that you said that you took your like own advice because as we were going through that webinar, I was writing down. I was like, "Well, I'm gonna do this one. I'm gonna do this one." It was the perfect example of kind of like that complacency that we talked about. Like if you're not, evaluating and kind of doing these things consistently, you can get complacent. And I was like, "Oh man, I need to sharpen my skills up here. I need to get back into my role." So anyway, I was taking notes as well. And I know my team is listening to this, so I'm not going to be specific about what's coming, but
Yeah, yeah, right. But it's true,
yeah.
it's easy because we're all so busy too at the end of the year. It's easy to not plan for this. And I just invited, whether it be doctors, leaders, owners, whoever, for me, it definitely starts in November. Like I have it in my calendar every year, start here with whatever it may be. It just, the thing too is I think we dig into it doesn't need to be big stuff or big amounts of money or big anything. It's more the specific. I see you and I appreciate you and I know how hard you've worked this year. I think so much of those little things go further than a lot of times people know, just that specific appreciation. So we really dig into that. So if you're still looking for things, potentially, whether it be for this year or maybe, just jump starting next year, take a listen to that one. So yes, anything else for the November one?
Nope, I think that leads us to where we are now. I will add DSN members. Again, you do have access to all of the recordings in here. If you're not a DSN member and you're listening to this, join us and get access to all of these incredible recordings in addition to the resources that Dr. Kassmel mentioned here. And I have to say, I know we skipped two, but 10 out of 12 ain't bad for the 2025. So cheers to
I
the Lady
know.
Leaders webinar series.
Well, that's why I said with two women with lives and all the things,
Yes.
and you're running multiple things, I'm running multiple things. I'm like, we do
Yeah.
try really hard. And I will say too, I already screenshotted. I asked some groups within DSN what would they want to hear about, and I screenshotted their answers, and I'm preparing for what 2026 is going to look like for us. Bringing some new things in. Time management was a big one.
Oh, Good one.
Time management and efficiency is big. I think a lot of the same things will continue to resonate, but if there's anything people are wanting to hear more about, whether it's treatment acceptance or hygiene or scheduling or the soft skills or verbiage, whatever it may be, we love to know. So let us know. We do try hard to honor as much as we can of what people want. So
That's
thank you.
why we're doing this.
It's not for just, yeah, believe you
Yeah.
me, it's not for just us to be able to hang out with each other, which is sometimes all we can do to be able to hang out with each other. But we do really, really care about the people who listen. And I know for me, that's always my mission is to, make practice life more joyful, and less suffering. Because I know I had more suffering than I needed to because I didn't know better back then. And I just missed a lot of the joy along the way. And I don't want that for other people. So please let us know if there's anything in 2026 that would be interesting for what is relevant for you guys. And otherwise, we will be seeing you in January. I cannot remember the date for that one, but I think we actually did set it. So we'll be seeing everybody in January and we'll kick off the 2026 series. So as always, Ashlee, thank you, thank you, thank you for running everything. Thank you for putting everything together. Thank you for all of it. Super appreciate you always co-piloting here. And yeah, we will see everybody back next year.
Yeah, and I have to go back on you real quick. I know that these take a lot of time to put together, and so we're so grateful for all of the your sharing your knowledge and the time and energy you put into too. So very, very grateful for you too, Dr. Summer Kassmel. And yes, we will be back on January 21st is our next one. So be out for, of course, be out for more information about those. So happy
Awesome.
2025, everyone.
Happy 2025. Here's to 2026 almost, and we'll see you guys next year. Thanks
Bye.
all. Bye.